Muslims the idea of paper. Paper and printing. So these things that you are using here, although it was developed in China, it was actually the Europeans who were responsible for what we call as print capitalism. That means to print en masse, a lot of books. Muslims in the past, when they write a book and another person wants to read their book, the other person has to copy the entire book. Chinese also the same. Right? Confucius write one book, the student has to write the whole book again. The Europeans, maybe they were lazy then, they don't want to write with their hands. They say, why should we be writing the book again? They build a technology where you can print as much as possible. What happens when you can print as much as possible? What happens when printing becomes very easy? What? The knowledge gets spread very fast. And here in Thailand, when you have all these printing shops, what happened? There's so many of these printing shops. What happened? All the books from overseas that you cannot buy, now you can print cheaply. Yeah, Wasim just taught me this new technology. Right? You can print all of these as much as possible, and that's how ideas spread. In Taiwan, you guys are the best resistors of capitalism. You don't buy books, you just print them. They said, the ladies will say, no worry, no copyright, this is Taiwan. Okay? And because of the movement of scholars and thinkers from the Arab world to South Asia to the Malay world, the ideas becomes exchanged. So we are actually looking at it right now. I am from Southeast Asia, but my ancestors are from the Arab world. My mother is from India. But because we travel all the way to Southeast Asia, we bring with us the ideas. So this is what I'm actually doing in Taiwan now. Because of the globalization of the world, through improved transport, you can listen to me. 200 years ago, if not for the Japanese, the British, the Dutch, the Americans, it would not be possible. Or even if it's possible, it's going to be slower for ideas to move. So what did colonialism did? They supercharged the process of the spread of ideas. So remember this word, supercharge. You can use it in your exam paper for. Okay, supercharge. Okay? And another person that you must know, and I hope you all will Google his name, is this man called Muhammad Abdu. If Jamaluddin Al-Afghani say, we must resist through our minds, Abdu say, that's not enough. You can resist through your minds, and you write a lot of books, but people will only read these books. Muhammad Abdu, who was the student of Afghani, he said, we must resist colonialism by improving and reforming our institutions. So in his days, the institution that Muslims go to is called the Al-Azhar. He says that we need to advocate for the revival of independent thinking. Ijtihad. In Arabic it's called ijtihad. What do you mean by independent thinking? Don't let the colonial powers think for you. Think for yourself. Don't let the Japanese think for you. Think for yourself. And nowadays, young kids like you, don't let the Americans think for you. Whatever you wear, think for yourself. You must have your own mind. This is what Abdul was trying to say. And he says we must also not think for ourselves, but look back into the past. And this is the powerful thing about Abdul. He always talks about the intellectual heritage. In Arabic, we call it the Turaf. T-U-R-A-T-H, the Turaf. Go back to the Turaf, go back to the past scholarship in order for you to think forward. And this is the beautiful thing about Malay Muslim thought, Arabic thought in those days, that the Malay Muslims speak up. But if you read Chinese history, they also did the same thing. Going back to Mozi, Confucius, whatever, read them again, Sun Tzu, Art of War, and then you use it during your time. So he was trying to say this, and he says that you must start to understand the present as well. Be realistic. He says that there must be a fusion of horizons. It's not enough to think with Islamic thinking. It's not enough to think with Islamic ideas. We need to take Western ideas and merge it with Islamic ideas. During his time, Nobody ever says this. It's almost like in Taiwan in 1910, one guy in class stood up and said, "Friends, we cannot only think like Chinese. We must also think like Japanese." What would the people then say? What would the people say? "Pentan, you. Is there something wrong with you?" People would say, "You're crazy." But in those days, when he said it, everybody said he was crazy. Because he's trying to say you must merge thinking together. And if he was the person who said that we need to be practical, the person who made all these ideas by Jamaluddin Al-Afghani and Abdul popular is this man called Rashid Reda, which is very interesting. And Prof. Nabil is now supervising Wasim about this Rashid Reda. He is an amazing guy in the history of Islam. Why is he amazing? He was the student of Jamaluddin Al-Afghani and Abdul, but he had a mind of his own, and not only that, he was good at writing in such a way that common people can read his works. The problem with Abdul and a little bit problem with Al-Ghani was that their writings were a little bit too philosophical. So I want to show you second video. Today a lot of videos about Rashid Reda, but this one going to be a very quick one. So that for us to know what is the link between him and Muslim thought.
Certainly one of the most acrimonious, thought-provoking thinkers from within the Muslim world in the 20th century. Muhammad Rashid Reda was somewhat of a champion in free thought and a prominent critic of the stagnating Muslim world. His central theme was that Islam as a religion is based on reason and rational deduction, or ijtihad, and this being the very foundation of the sacred law. Rashid Reda was born in 1865 in the small village of Al-Qalamun in the Syrian province of the Ottoman Empire. Dating back to the year 1884, Rashid Reda came into contact with an early edition of Al-Urwat al-Wuthqa, the journal published by Jamaluddin Al-Afghani and Muhammad Abdul. Within a few years, Rashid Reda would travel to Cairo in order to work alongside Muhammad Abdul. Within the space of a year, Rashid Reda launched a new journal called Al-Manar. This weekly journal initially expounded on Quranic commentary, but as Rashid Reda slowly grew out of the teachings promoted by Muhammad Abdul and Jamaluddin Al-Afghani, he subsequently developed a more conformist approach to the religion, calling for a return to the earlier sources for a more authentic interpretation of Islam, according to reason and principle. Despite his departure from the teachings of Muhammad Abdul and Jamaluddin Al-Afghani, Rashid Reda's later work still bore some resemblance to the principal theme of Muhammad Abdul's thought and philosophy.
So I'm going to stop here. So that is the most important part, that this man, Rashid Reda, which Malays would follow him. Rashid Reda was far more influential in Southeast Asia than Abdul and Afghani actually. Why? Because Rashid Reda believed that his teacher was half right, his teacher's was 1/4 right. So he formulated his own ideas of Islamic modernism that to him must be closer to the spirit of Islam, but at the same time must be in line with the spirit of reform that they were trying to do in those days. That's why, to me, he deserves. The sad part about this Rashid Reda man is that in the scholars that I will mention just now, Abdul and Afghani, he is the least studied and the most commonly misunderstood. People think that this man is just a copycat of Muhammad Abdul, but actually, if you look at many of his writings, he was actually his own man, he has his own way of thinking. So let us move on. Before I move on, is there any questions so far? Anybody needs any clarification so far? Anybody wants to ask anything? General questions? No? Yes? Indonesians, you all must say something?
I heard that the teacher of Jamaluddin Al-Afghani is Ibn Taymiyyah.
The teacher of Jamaluddin Ibn Taymiyyah lived for 400 years before him, but they were very much influenced by the thinking of Ibn Taymiyyah, because Ibn Taymiyyah advocated ijtihad, and they followed Ibn Taymiyyah's ideas, right? Any other people? Malaysians and Indonesians, you all must say something. Yeah, this is about your own countries. Anything? No. Yeah. Anything there? Bapak?
No.
Nothing. Sedap mendengar ni. Yeah. So this thing, when you go to Indonesia to give a talk, they like to listen to you, right? And which is very nice. But when you ask them, do you have anything to say? They will smile, right? I also learned this in Taiwan also. It's the same. Yeah? They will smile to you. Okay? So what is the characteristic of Muslim modernism? One characteristic of Muslim modernism is that they will criticize, and I just did that actually to you guys. You always smile, but you don't want to ask me questions. You must ask me questions. Is that they criticize, they critique selected traditions that stifle critical thought and scientific progress. They do not want people, especially the Malays, to be superstitious. What is superstitious? What is superstitious?
太过迷信，
太过
超级迷信。
高行迷信 jangan orang that one. Superstitious means you believe that there is this world of spirits that always determine what is happening to you. And Malays always believe in that. When they are sick, they say the evil spirit made me sick. Chinese also still like that. Okay, correct? Why the person got a divorce? Some spirit already took him away. Rather than explaining that the guy actually had a new girlfriend. Right? And this was the thinking of the Malays. They do not want to study science. Rather, they look at the signs that they see in nature. And this is a problem. And not only that, they follow people blindly. They follow people blindly. They don't question some of the beliefs that were there. So the Muslim modernists, after they studied from the ideas of Rashid Reda and Abdul and Al-Ghani, they say we must openly say this is nonsense. And they actually did that. So imagine in Taiwanese society or in your family, your mother believed that the house has spirits and ghosts. Suddenly you tell your mama one day, nonsense. Then your mother say, where you learn this from? Oh, Prof. Khairudin taught me this. No, don't say that. But that was what happened. Basically, these people came back to their own societies and say, stop being superstitious. Start using your reason. Think why things are happening. And this is the more important thing that I want to say here. Take note of this. They were emphasizing on the importance at looking at cause and effect. What we call as causal reasoning. Cause and effect. Why did something happen? Something happened because there is a cause. Why were you born? You were born because your mother was pregnant. Why was your mother pregnant? Okay, I don't have to explain that. Right? There is always a cause behind it. But Malays did not think in terms of cause and effect. And that's why the Malays used to believe, especially if you go to Brunei, in Brunei they believe that their first king was born from a golden egg. You are laughing. When you go to Brunei, until today, in the university, I was teaching one course for the class, they still believe that this king was born from a golden egg. And I said that that's impossible. The king must have a mother, right? The mother must get pregnant, means he has a father. How did he be born from a golden egg? It happens, right? And this is the thing that they were resisting against, right? This superstition and blind followership. This whole idea that if so many people say that something is right, it's right. If everybody say that that house, that building has a ghost, it has a ghost. I don't care whether it's true or not. It's true. Right? If somebody say that this person is scary, everybody believe he's scary without asking. And this is the problem that they first critique. Secondly, Muslim modernists, they affirm practices that could strengthen the Malays towards the creation of a forward-looking community. They emphasize, as I was saying just now, ijtihad, creativity, resourcefulness, openness, and dedication. And this is the thing that Muhammadiyah especially always emphasize. You must not only be open-minded, but you must be resourceful. In order to be resourceful, you must have what they call as ikhtiyar. A-I-K-H-T-I-Y-A-R. I-K-H-T-I-Y-A-R. It's actually an Arabic word, ikhtiyar. Well, Malays use the same Arabic word. You must always be looking for something. If you want to progress, keep looking. If you want to be a good student, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. And this is what they say, Malays, according to them, they have this culture, but they look for the wrong things. So they say we must not only criticize them, we must also say that some things that they do are good, but they must do it properly. When your child is sick, look for a doctor. Don't look for a shaman. Don't look for someone who do the Kung Tao stuff and then you think that your son will get better. Right? When you need education, go to a school. Don't go and find somebody that you know in the village and suddenly you study with that person, you also don't know what the person is teaching. So he said, you must be resourceful. And they also introduce new institutions and systems that would hasten the process of modernization. They emphasize first on mass literacy, reading. If you want to be smart, you must read, read, read. Not listen, listen, listen. It's not enough. It's not enough to listen. If you want to upgrade your mind, you must read all the time. And this is the crisis of today's children. They don't read book, they read Facebook. It's the same as that time. It's the same. People don't want to read. They only want to listen and read things that are unimportant. And they emphasize on formal education, going to school, and new notions of work and leisure. Okay, what do I mean by this? In the past, Malays used to work in the paddy fields. You know paddy fields, right? Rice. They would plant rice. They would go out 5 o'clock in the morning when it's not hot. They will work for 2 hours. Once the sun come out, they will go back into the house. Sleep, make children, right? Eat. You see, you go to Indonesian society, that in the past that was how it was. Come out again at 11 o'clock and check whether things are okay, and then go back home again, make another child again, and then in the afternoon when the sun sets, then they will do work. So their whole idea of work and leisure is all totally messed up, right? In fact, in Southeast Asian societies, they rest more than they work. And the Muslim modernists question this. On this part, I disagree with the Muslim modernists. Why? Actually, if you think about Taiwanese society in the past, they were less stressed than us. Correct, huh? Why? In the morning, you go to school, right? 2 hours school, you go back, sleep. After you sleep, you come back to school, you study again. Lunchtime, you go back, eat. What has happened now, right now in our modern society? Morning, go to school, stay in school, correct, right? Study, check computer, lunchtime, talk with friend, go back, then you eat. By the time you go back, you are so tired, you cannot do anything. Because our whole idea of work and leisure has become defined by the Western idea of work and leisure. When you work, you work. When you play, you play. You work hard, you play hard. There's no such thing. Malays always say, when you work, you play. When you play, you work. All together. But the Muslim modernists question this whole idea of work versus leisure. And this is actually a very interesting subject of study for your own purpose. How do Taiwanese define leisure? How do they actually rest? How do Taiwanese rest? I don't know how they rest. At 10 o'clock, I go downstairs at the street, they are still out there running around. Right? So that you all seems like you all work a lot every day. So this is something that they were questioning. And what the Muslim modernists actually did, by the early 20th century, modern cultures have only been adopted by the urban literate elites because they were educated and traveled. And there was a rapid spread of Muslim modernist ideas has to do with various means by which the ideology was disseminated. So by the early 20th century, almost all of Southeast Asia was affected by modern ideas. Not everybody became modern, but everybody was aware that modernity is here to stay. Suddenly, they see that there is a telephone. Suddenly, they saw that there is a train. Never before they see a train before in their lives. Suddenly, there is such thing as a car. Suddenly, there is such thing as a radio. Nobody heard of a radio before. In fact, there are reports that show that in Malaya, when the radio was first introduced, many Malays think that it's the devil speaking. Right? Because suddenly this box can talk. Something is wrong somewhere. Right? So all these beliefs come about, but everybody was affected by it. And Malays now start to formulate their own kind of modernisms. So social, intellectual, economic, educational, political modernism. So let's go through it one by one. The first kind of modernism that was introduced was what I call as social modernism. Yeah.
I want to ask for the education part. What kind of education did common people receive?
Yeah, what kind of education?
They learn in madrasa or they
Very good question. So later I'm going to talk about that. I think you already see my slides already. No, eh? I will talk about the educational modernism part. But what kind of education did the mass of Malays or Muslims had in Southeast Asia? They had their own traditional institutions. Usually they studied in mosques or what they call as surau. Surau is basically a prayer place where they would read the Quran. The people of the higher classes, of the upper classes, will have special teachers teaching them. So people of the Kraton, they will have teachers going. And the upper classes also sometimes will be sent to colonial schools. In Malaysia, Malays refuse to go to school. Why? They don't want to go. Puyao. Why? Why Malays refuse to go to school? The British set up a lot of schools in all over Malaya. Malays refuse to go until the British say, if you don't send your children to school, we will fine you. Why they don't want to go to school? Come, somebody, please guess. Why they don't want to go to school? Not because of the work and leisure. Go to school cannot make baby. No. Your children cannot make baby. They're children. Why?
Because they will get doctrined by the British.
Exactly, because they think that if they send their children to modern schools, their children would become Christians. Which is not true. Even though the Christian missionaries did set up a lot of schools, many of these missionaries were actually more interested to make Malays literate. So many Malays didn't want to go to school. Up until the 1930s, Malays didn't want to go to formal schools. They rather ask their children to study the Quran. So they would memorize the Quran, and then after that they will go to Mecca or Egypt to study, and then they come back and teach the Quran again. And this went on and on until the 1930s. And Muhammadiyah came about. Muhammadiyah is a movement that is huge in Indonesia. In 1914, this man by the name of Ahmad Dahlan said that we need to return our society back to the spirit of the Quran. The Quran is the sacred text of the Muslims, and to the way of the Prophet. But he said this is not enough. Muslims have been reading the Quran for many years, but they are still colonized. So there is either something wrong with the Quran or something wrong with them. Surely there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with the Quran. Okay? So he said that we must return to the spirit of the Quran and the Sunnah, and we must start a movement. Now, Malays never understand or never know the meaning of movement, harakah. There's no such thing as a movement in the Malay mind. Why? Because Malays were subject of kings. In those days, in the past, there was no movements. But he said, we need to have a movement of our own. He was influenced by Rashid Rida and Abdul. And he says that we need to have a group that comes together and engage in commanding good and fighting evil. And that's what he did. Basically, like in this class, I say, okay guys, I think Taiwanese is not modern enough. We need to come together now, go out there in the market and tell people, be modern, be modern. And it became a big group. Now you have all these movements, like Me Too movement, whatever movement out there. So he was the first to say that. And how did he try to change society? His method is, in order for you to make society better, you need to settle their social problems. The reality is that Muslims die faster. Until today, I just want to tell you, this is about my community. Muslims die early. Muslims die earlier than non-Muslims. Why? In Southeast Asia, not the whole world. Why Muslims die earlier than, especially in Indonesia? Why Muslims and Malaysia? Why Muslims die earlier than non-Muslims? Why? Come, think. Why Muslims die early? Why? Southeast Asians, you have the answer. Why? Why? Because they eat. Right? They keep on eating all the unhealthy food. In Singapore, in Singapore, Chinese only eat soup. Malays eat fried food all the time. When you eat fried food, you become bigger and bigger and bigger and then you die. So they always get diabetes. And Khairudin Dahlan actually knew of all these problems in the Malay society. Mortality amongst Muslims were actually very high. In Indonesia, there is this scholar by the name of p2 who did some study of this on demography and other things, the people in the Netherlands. And he says that you need to solve the social issues in order to make people more progressive. So what did he do? He set up schools, hospitals, and clinics, while at the same time propagate Islam through these hospitals and clinics. Actually, he learned all of this from the Christians. See the amazing how ideas move from one group to another. He saw that the Christians were setting up schools. Never mind, we start up our own schools. The Christians were setting up hospitals. We set up our own hospitals. The Christians had their own universities. Later on, Muhammadiyah also set up their own universities. Actually, a bit of a copycat crime, but it was very powerful. So he set up all of these things to change the people's minds and take them out of poverty. Because in Malay, they believe that kemiskinan membawa kepada kekafiran, which means when you are poor, you become disbelievers. And they believe in that, and they help them out of their helplessness. And the Muhammadiyah established hundreds of schools, clinics, hospitals, halfway houses, and welfare homes. Why they do this also? Because Christian missionizing was also very powerful, especially in Indonesia. The Christian movement was called Zending. It's actually a Dutch word, I think. Zending is a Dutch word, right? Yeah, Zending. And he wanted to provide an alternative. So again, back to our point about alternative modernity. And I want to show you this video. By the 1950s, the membership of Muhammadiyah has gone up to 5 million people. Now, if you ask people from the Muhammadiyah, how many members you have? They say, ask the other group, Nahdlatul Ulama. If they have 30, we have 40. If they have 40, we have 50. They always play with these numbers. But from what we know, they have about 30 million. So I just want to show you this. It's very, very interesting how they began and they expanded the movement.
Established in 1912, Muhammadiyah is popularly known as the largest modernist and reformist movement of Islam in Indonesia. The character of Islam promoted by Muhammadiyah are based on the Quran and Sunnah, not following certain school of theology, law, and Sufism in Islam, but learning from each of them and adopting the strongest position based on ijtihad, promoting religious reform and strong emphasis on amal saleh, or good deeds. Inspired by Surah Al-Ma'un, the founder of this movement, Ahmad Dahlan, introduced 4 main focus areas: schooling, preaching, healing, and feeding. Schooling. Muhammadiyah introduced a new system of education and promoted a new medium of transmission of knowledge through publication. Muhammadiyah now has thousands of schools from primary to post-secondary schools. Preaching. Muhammadiyah is based on promoting good, forbidding evil. This is fought through various mediums: TV, Muhammadiyah TV, Suara Muhammadiyah, one of the oldest magazines in Indonesian history, books, and face-to-face dakwah. Healing. Muhammadiyah has introduced a new healthcare system and tried to reform the reliance on traditional healers.
So they
Now,
fight this
Muhammadiyah has hundreds of hospitals and clinics. Feeding. Dahlan forbid his students and followers to indulge in observing ritual, but neglecting and impoverished and marginalized people. Muhammadiyah now has 100 orphanages spreading all over Indonesia.